All right, let's bring in Joel Rubin, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for Legislative Affairs in the Obama administration. He also is a Democratic candidate for Congress in Maryland. Joel, thank you very much for being with us this morning. Let's just start with the White House proposal. I was just speaking with Washington Post reporter Leanne Caldwell about this. The White House wants more aid out the door to Israel as fast as possible. Obviously, that's not easy to do without a Speaker of the House. But they also, it seems, are suggesting that Ukraine aid should be tied to aid to Israel in order to expedite that piece of funding, which has, of course, run into opposition from Republicans. If you were elected to Congress, I mean, do you support doing it that way, or do you think that the aid to Israel should go out all by itself with no strings attached?
Well, Casey, it's great to be with you. And the aid for Ukraine should have been passed long ago. So absolutely, that aid should be tied to a supplemental package that may support additional aid to Israel. You know, to what Congressman Bacon is talking about as well, this is a disaster. When I served in the Obama administration, I was our senior liaison to the House for the State Department. And the idea of not having a speaker functioning effectively is just unthinkable. We would have to go provide classified briefings to the Speaker. The Speaker would make decisions right there, would direct committees what to do and how to do it. And so this Speaker, currently the acting one, has no national security background. It's not clear if legal decisions can fully be made. And in a time of crisis, it really undermines our ability to project strength and power and be effective on the global stage. So absolutely move these bills through and get this speakership completed and done. Move it off the table. Republicans really need to come together for the sake of the country and our allies abroad.
As someone who has been in those rooms when you have taken, you know, from a national security and foreign policy, the State Department, when you go into those rooms and you try to negotiate these things, can you give me an example of a decision that would be impacted by not having a speaker?
Yeah, absolutely. For example, back in 2014, 2015 in Iraq, when ISIS spread across Iraq and was attacking, there were moments where when we in the Obama administration needed direct support for military operations to combat ISIS. And that meant briefing the Speaker and telling the Speaker, Speaker Boehner at that moment, that it is crucial that you and Congress support these efforts, that any kinds of approvals be expedited. And the Speaker said yes. And that meant that the committees, Foreign Affairs, Armed Services, Intelligence, other committees that had impact, that had oversight of those issues were read in and were able to make decisions quickly and work closely with the Pentagon in that case and our allies. You take that away, it's like you're unplugging the tub and the water's going right down the drain, and we don't know how to ensure that decisions are fully made. So appropriators now are in the same conundrum. What does the Speaker really want? How do we organize with other committees? How do we make decisions about priorities for the funding? It's chaos, and that just can't happen in a crisis.
Yeah, no, chaos in this kind of a situation is makes it much harder to actually execute on foreign policy goals. Before I let you go, there is a wider range of opinions about Israel inside the House Democratic caucus than there have been in previous decades. And some members, including Rashida Tlaib and Cori Bush, put out statements that have come under intense criticism for saying, for example, Tlaib said that she continues to, quote, grieve the Palestinian and Israeli lives lost today before calling for dismantling what she calls the apartheid system. She has come in for criticism of this. Do you agree with Rashida Tlaib's characterization of what's going on in the Middle East?
There's no equivalency between Hamas terrorists entering Israeli villages and slaughtering innocent civilians in their sleep and the Israeli Defense Forces defending their people right now to prevent that from happening again. So, no, I don't agree with that at all. I think it's deplorable language, and I frankly am shocked that in a moment of crisis, when those who advocate for human rights and global human rights look at the facts and they see what we're waking up to today. For example, Kibbutz Be'eri, over 100 Israelis slaughtered in a pogrom in southern Israel right alongside Gaza, peace-loving people. To try to make an equivalency between that and the legitimate suffering of Palestinian civilians, and there is true suffering for Palestinian civilians that needs to be discussed consistently, but there's no equivalency between what we're seeing now and what we saw from Hamas and what the Israeli Defense Force is doing to protect its citizens right now after this horrendous, heinous attack.
All right, Joel Rubin, thank you very much for spending some time with us this morning. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Casey.